Well, folks, I hope you can all hear me. My name's David Sullivan. I've been with Encompass Solutions going on 11 years now, working as a specialist in inventory management and warehousing solutions. And today we're going to be talking about warehouse labeling and particularly a platform called Bartender, which is always a great joke. Like I got to go see my bartender. Must be 5 o'clock, right? But it's an industry standard, very solid, very stable label designing and printing solution. And we'll be talking a lot of details about that.
Sorry, David, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, Layla, I can. Can you
I'm
hear me
sorry.
fine?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you want to just proceed or would you like me to finish what she had for me to say?
Well, no. Well, why don't we? Are we live? We're live, yes.
Yes, we are live. We can just go ahead forward. It's up to you.
Let's go ahead and forward. We'll
All
we'll
right,
pick up at the
perfect.
end.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Folks, thank you so much for your patience. I was having audio issues earlier, and we just had a little temporary glitch there. So, talking about Encompass Solutions, we were founded in 2001, so we've been around the block a while. Implementation Foundation, we're headquartered in Greensboro, North Carolina, in a gorgeous remodeled cotton mill. Fantastic space. I wish I could work there. We've got over 40 staff members. We're privately owned, very active managed partnership, and we focus primarily on manufacturing and distribution with Epicor and Epicor Kinetic. We are a strong partner of Epicor. We've been a partner since 2003. In 2005, we became a value-added reseller. That just means in addition to services, automating and customizing, tailoring the software to your needs, implementing it and helping you get it deployed throughout your system, we are also able to sell the product, right? So that means we have a closer direct relationship with you. But overall, we're a premier Epicor partner. Our consultants are certified using the same standards that Epicor's consultants are, so you know you're in good, safe hands. And we have a very strong collaborative partnership with Epicor. I'm currently working on a 2-year project for them. So they bring us in. We occasionally bring in Epicor specialists when there's an area of need that we don't cover. And it just allows us to work cohesively with them as a team, right? And so when you engage with us or engage with Epicor directly, you have full coverage of talented people taking care of your needs. And we're a go-to partner for Epicor Kinetic. I don't know how many of them we've implemented or upgraded, but we've got a lot of experience in that space. Today, we're going to look at what Bartender is, talk about the benefits of warehouse labeling, the process and what you need to get started, some of the other tools that'll come into the mix, and kind of talk about what it would take to roll out a labeling system. At the end, we're going to open up to questions and answers. And so you have access to a question panel on your viewer screen. If anything comes up, please submit that. We may stop and address it, but most of those will save toward the end. So please stay to the end, and we'll definitely talk about that. And it'll be a live chat, so other topics you want to know about, you can enter in when we get down to that time. So with that said, um, we actually wanted to ask a quick poll of the room. So you should see a poll popping up on your screen. I'm going to go ahead and do it too. So we're really talking about how you're handling labeling, manual, automated, fully automated. Thank you for your participation, folks. I'd appreciate it. Kind of helps me understand the group that we're talking to. Okay, so it looks like we've got, go ahead and share some results here. It's a pretty good mix. Can you see the results, folks? Looks like we've got about couple people using semi-automated solutions. That's where most people land. We try to do everything we can automatically, but there's still stuff we've got to do manually. One person using complete manual labels, and that's fine. That's what we're here to talk about today. And at least two of you using a fully automated system. So that's fantastic, a good mix. And so I think we'll have, I'll go ahead and stop sharing this. we will have a good amount of information for everyone. So let's go ahead and talk about what Bartender is. And all joking aside, it's actually a very fantastic labeling solution. I first started using it in 2010. And there we were doing something really simple. We had a lot of shipping problems, and we decided we wanted barcodes, part numbers, barcodes, quantities on boxes and stuff. And so that was kind of the origin of my experiment with it. Today, the setup is so much easier. That was a much older version of Epicor. But what I remember most about it was that it was stable, right? So we're talking about a comprehensive labeling solution. It allows you to easily design. I want to emphasize that easily compared to other approaches, other solutions to design, print, and automate labels across a bunch of different formats. And when I say different formats, we can see some examples on the screen, hazard warnings. The one to the right of there looks like an automotive industry compliant one. We've got an employee ID. Actually, I've done a project with that. They printed like 150 employee IDs right out of Bartender. It took a bit of time, but they could print those out of Epicor when a new hire happened to print their employee badges. So that's what it is. It just lets you build those things. It's got a great designer, and I really think that's something I want to emphasize. Not many of us have graphic design experience. There's another way of printing reports out of Epicor, and I've done it many times when someone just needs one label to print occasionally or manually, right? It maybe isn't worth all the setup or the expense of buying Bartender just for one little label. But they need to come to us to design it for them, or they need 8 hours of training and a bunch of experience. The design aspect at Bartender is just so easy. You're dragging and dropping fields, easily moving them around, putting pictures in. So it's got that advantage, right? Once you understand how to plug it into Epicor, you can easily train someone to make a variety of labels or adapt them. Depending on the industries you sell to, you may have 5 or 10 different versions of a basic label, right? Depending on which customer is receiving it, because they have their own requirements. It can also print, and so that's really the genius of it, right? Is its ability to plug in, and then it's got this whole automatic control system to either watch databases that flip a switch and generate a label, or maybe a file gets dropped somewhere. So it directly connects with those databases. You can print automatically. And from a compliance or industry standpoint, whatever your requirements are, whether those are coming from Boeing Aerospace or the FDA for medical devices, bioscience kind of stuff, or just in aerospace in general, or you sell to big box retailers like Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Amazon, Target, all of those have their own labeling requirements, and you will in many cases get fined if your labels are not compliant. So that's what we mean by compliance, whether it's like an actual regulatory or it's just a customer or industry standard. That's what Bartender's for, is to let you design, print, and stay compliant with your customer needs and with your own internal needs. We use it very widely with Epicor. I would say almost everyone generating labels out of an Epicor system is using a Bartender integration one way or another. That integration was built, like I said, it was already there in 2010, and I'm pretty sure it was there in the 2006 version. So it kind of goes back. The system was built around Bartender, right? And Bartender itself has been there forever, used across thousands of industries, millions of companies. It automates processes for you, which has some benefits we'll talk about in a little bit. And really, it's about reducing manual efforts. One of you in the poll said that you're manually generating labels. It's tricky. It takes time. People make mistakes. And so with Bartender, it's all real time, no employee effort once the original setup is done, and it's live data. So there's just no mistakes. No one's miskeying or selecting the wrong thing from a list. The kinds of labels that would be typically are used: shipping labels, compliance, a lot of FDA kind of regulation, FDA and aerospace labels, product labels, real fancy ones. I've seen as simple as a part number and a description, all the way to real fancy ones with hazard warnings and photographs that print of the product inside the box. And they're also used for inventory. What is this thing? I want to scan it to move it to a different shelf. The shelves are also labeled. There's a lot of applications to just make your warehouse processes better And it can do all of those. And like I said, RFID labels, tags, basically any kind of thing that you would print in one way or another, Bartender can support. And why do you want to do that? Right? There are benefits to warehouse labeling, and if you're already working in an environment where you've got labels, you understand why. There's a reason you made that investment in time and money in previous years. If you're not working in a labeled environment, you understand why. Right? So when I came into Epicor as a user, as a customer 15 years ago, their warehouse was chaotic. There were part numbers written on boxes, but people would combine boxes sometimes. And literally every day, I was working in the office, but literally every day we got called out to do the walkabout. We had a name for it, the walkabout. We would literally, the whole office would go out looking for something. System said we had one. It wasn't where it was supposed to be. And at one point, I brought little field glasses for bird watching because I was just tired of squinting at the top shelves. So there's chaos that can be controlled. So first of all, labeling, whether that's barcoded or not, is going to improve your accuracy. You're going to reduce your shipping errors, and you're going to have real-time data, right? You know that those labels are true, correct, and accurate, and that allows you to move with trust. Grab a box, beep it, ship it without all the other oversight. I mean, literally at one point when I was a customer, we had to bring the quality control team in and they had to inspect every outbound box because the problems were just getting so bad before we got into better warehouse management systems. It's also a very efficient process. It's so much faster to scan and track your inventory compared to typing in long part numbers, long serial numbers, and it reduces overall errors. It also gets rid of bottlenecks, right? So because these are usually set up to be automated, they're based on the transaction you do. If your labels get put on the product during manufacturing, someone's going to touch the system, and we set it up so when they do that touch, the labels print and you put it right there as it's coming off your production area. Or receiving, right? You want to label things when they come through the door, or maybe your manufacturers don't, your vendors don't do a good job labeling, or it's not consistent. They do the transaction, the labels print out, they slap them on the box and put the boxes away. So it just allows you to very quickly turn and move without an employee having to go do anything else. It's based on the work they've already done. By the time they're done with the record, the label is in their hand. Reduces cost, and this is a significant issue with missed shipments. So if you think about even an inexpensive item, if you ship the wrong thing, you're going to lose the cost of that, right? You sell T-shirts or hand tools. Um, it's going to cost more to ship it back usually than it would cost to just tell the customer to keep it and destroy it. So you lose the cost of what was shipped incorrectly, all the packaging, the labor that went into packing, boxing it up, the shipping and freight costs. It just adds up, right? And then there's also label saving, right? So by generating the labels correctly, you don't have a lead walking away from the production area to sit at a computer to manually update a label template and some other piece of software to print the labels out, manually keeping track of what the last serial number was. It's just overall the benefits in terms of shipping, inventory, and quality control errors combined with not having to take your production people away from production to go print labels. It adds up, right? There's a real cost or there's a return on investment. You can calculate that. Regulatory compliance. Many industries have standards within like the big box retailer space. Regardless of who you're shipping to, they have a published guide, a labeling guide, and it'll tell you exactly what they want. The reason is when that box comes into one of their facilities, it gets scanned. That data gets parsed by their ERP system. Other labels print out. It directs where that box is going to ship. So if you're shipping to Amazon, it might go to one place, beeped, identify that it has to ship to facility, to their distribution center 1152. And when it gets there, it gets beeped and they know exactly what customer to turn around and ship it to. So those big box retailers have a really refined process, and labeling keeps you compliant with them. So they'll do business with you. FDA regulations, anything related to medical stuff, obviously really important to have 100% traceability that's auditable. Aerospace also has lots of requirements. I've been in facilities where literally every little O-ring, little rubber ring, is in a bag with a label on it because that's their requirement. They have to know exactly when things were produced and lot numbers and expiration dates, so they can guarantee that there's never going to be a bad thing happen on an airplane because someone put the wrong little rubber gasket somewhere. So industry standards define for you how you need to label internally and when you ship if you want to do business with those profitable customers. It also makes you audit ready, right? Barcode, RFID, other things give you and they allow you to have traceability when you do get audited if you work in one of those industries. Uh, so what do you need to get started, right? Um, there's some software, there's some hardware setup. Basically, you need the Bartender software. There's different versions, standard, professional, and automation. Kind of standard if you think about one person sitting at their desk with a little printer and they just make labels and hit the button and it prints. It's not integrated with Epicor, but it's easy to design and easy to manage. The professional level upgrades from that, I think you actually get access to more users, but it's still manual. And when you get into automation, which is 99% of the time what you want with Epicor, that's where you get into being able to integrate it into Epicor and other systems, right? You're not limited to just Epicor. It's a fantastic software suite. I will tell you that Seagull Scientific, that's the company that publishes Bartender, has fantastic support and an amazing community of users, right? So once you get it, you look at it and you realize, wow, there's an entire suite of tools. Epicor uses two of them. You may find other applications where it can really do great stuff for you, fill other needs. And then you have decisions about whether you're on the cloud or you're on premise. You've got Epicor on your own servers. There is a little bit of a different setup. You need another piece of software to pull from Epicor server to print on your local network. So that's kind of it. You got to have Epicor or whatever. You've got to have a version of Bartender. You decide which makes the most sense for your needs. And then if you're an Epicor cloud user, you've got to do a little bit of setup so you can get um, those print commands. So when we talk about integration with Epicor, it's integrated to the data, right? There's APIs, data connectors, middleware. You can also work with file drops. So there's a bunch of different ways to communicate. The big deal is it gives you real-time label generation. So instead of like pre-printing 5,000 part labels, you print them as you need them, which means whatever you're using today is the latest, greatest, up-to-date information that was on the server a nanosecond before you hit the print button. You'll need printers, and most commonly you're looking at Honeywell, used to be called Zebra printers. And so we see a couple of examples here on the screen. They've got really high capacity, fast labeling solutions, uh, down to the kind of the picture in the middle. That's the little desktop version. You want to print 5 or 10 labels at a time. That's what I started with. We used to print thousands and thousands of labels, and we found that you spent half your time waiting for the labels to print. So depending on your needs, you would typically work with us or Epicor directly. You can also just go to, there are lots of companies that do labeling stuff that can help you with hardware selection, but it's going to be based on what kinds of labels you need. Do they need to stick to steel and be scannable in 5 years from now? Do they need to stick to a paper box like a shipping label where it needs to stick to cardboard for a week, a couple days, etc. So you'll look at those. Do you need to scan it from the floor from 15, feet away, or is it something that'll only ever be scanned up close? So the kinds of labels you need, the volume of labels you need, the speed you need, they're all going to drive you to picking a good printer. And there are lots of models out there. Encompass does not sell hardware. We are very happy to help you with that. But when we give you recommendations, that's just going to be what we've worked with in the past and what we see work for our other customers. But again, you've got lots of options and we're happy to help you sort through those. So for all of this to work, you go and design the label, right? But it has to have data sources, right? So the primary source of that is linking to live Epicor data. We set up integrations that can pull in whatever data it is that you need. Again, it can be a direct database to database connection. Most commonly, we use file drops where the system is kicking out a file that Bartender scans and runs through a print job. And then the other side of that is creating those automations. So this is built into Epicor, the ability to print something based on a condition. A job gets marked as complete. Maybe something gets printed or an operation on a job is complete. A WIP label generates. Something is received, a receiving or part or product label gets printed. Manufacturing floor, final assembly, quality control inspection stickers. There's lots and lots of things where the user is doing something in the system and you just want a label to print out. So you can put it on a tote or directly on the product or on paperwork. So with that said, there are some other tools we want to talk about. All of what we said is great if you don't need to scan anything, right? You could still have part labels because that's what your customers want, or that's what your quality control need is to be able to identify, hey, what is this box of stuff? What job is it for? Who is it meant for? Like who's the end customer and what materials were used, right? You can do all that and you don't need to integrate it back into the system other than printing the label. Epicor has a kinetic warehouse. The EKW Epicor Kinetic Warehouse is an app that runs on handheld Android devices that lets you do all of your warehouse transactions, receiving, moving inventory, pulling material off a shelf and issuing it to job, putting it into WIP, production and labor activities. Beep, I started this job. Beep, I'm done and I finished 4 units. All the way down through your shipping, quality control, et cetera. So that's the Epicor app. And so when you start thinking about a functional warehouse, everything is in its place. The system knows where everything is. Users can easily scan. Beep, I'm pulling this part number. Beep, that's the quantity. Beep, here's the location. And beep, here's where I put it. So that's really what the handheld software is for. How do you make it possible so users can do those transactions real time and those two things fit together very, very nicely, right? Everything being labeled, all of your paperwork has barcodes on it. You just ensure accuracy at every step of the point. And those mobile devices um, keep your accuracy real time, right? And again, I think back to 15 years before, I worked in a warehouse where people wrote things down and you hoped that at the end of the day, they would take the time or remember to sit down and enter the transactions they did into Epicor. But sometimes we had containers of product that was put away and our receiving guy was three days behind on processing the paperwork. So that's what Kinetic Warehouse does, is it just helps you go through things that much faster. When you pair that with a labeling solution, you know that those transactions are accurate, and you can even build safeguards, safety rails into that app where you force the user, and it's kind of a transaction by transaction choice. Do you want them to scan the barcode? Do you want them to scan the serial or the lot number or the bin? Right? So you decide where you need safeguards and you just force it. And so they do the transactions right there. Um, Epicor has got an advanced material management module, and that'll let you do some fantastic things like allocation or requesting movement. So users would sit down and look at the open sales orders that need to ship or the open jobs that are coming up, getting ready to start production. They're taking material, allocating it or reserving it so that there's a tag saying, hey, those 5 units or that coil of steel is needed for this particular production job starting tomorrow morning. And this generates a queue of action items for your warehouse team. They literally are just working down a list, grab this, move it there, hit a button. And so that processes the transaction, and that's usually where you would introduce a scan point, right? Hit the button, but scan the lot number because we want to know you're telling the truth. And so it takes your picking and your pulling and putting away product from receiving. moving product from one workstation to the next workstation. It just makes it all digital so you can move away from paper flows, and it makes it very, very easy and almost foolproof for your staff to do those transactions real time. And so the two of those, labeling generated by Bartender, handhelds, and advanced material management with Epicor, kind of get you to that point of accuracy. What does that all look like though, and how do you get there and roll out a labeling system with Bartender? You really need to look at it as a miniature project plan. Don't overthink it. If you're already using Epicor, really you're just talking about adding an enhancement to the work you're already doing. If you're looking at Epicor for the first time, understand this is some activity, but this is not a 6-month action plan. Step one, you just need to understand what you do today and what your needs are. You can work with one of us, someone like myself, and we'll help you walk through that process. But really, you're just identifying the workflows that need to be established and any gaps or inefficiencies in your process. You have to go through and set up your labels. And usually what I recommend is I'll train you on how to set up your own labels because it's really pretty easy. And then that lets you go crazy and make as many as you want for any possible variation. I had a project where there were over 80 different customer specific versions of a product label. It was the aerospace industry, and each one of their customers had different requirements, and we went through this whole huge setup. It would have cost a fortune to pay me to do it, as an outside consultant. So we trained a couple people, and they probably weren't happy with the extra work being given to them, but the company was able to internalize it and make that an IT setup. So you got to set up your templates and your requirements, and then the print automation and the Epicor integrations. A lot of the time, that's a one-time set it and forget it setup. Normally, we would do the initial setup for you, and that's on the bartender side, and then we would train you and show you how to set up the Epicor side. We're happy to do the work, but personally, I feel that you're much more empowered if you know how to do it yourself. And that way, as your needs change, you can say, oh, we want to add a work in progress, a work in process WIP label, and you just go do it, right? And then it becomes a 30-minute task. So you just need a plan for that. How long is it going to take you to make your plan? You got to get the labels done. You have to have it set up in Epicor so they can print. And normally, um, user training, right? And then a timeline. And so we can help you with that. Normally, what most people are doing, there's two choices really. Are you going to label everything that's in your shop? Right? That's a big undertaking. You are going to have to label all your bins. That's fine. But if you've got 1,000 pallets sitting out there, it's a good question. Does it make sense to go and audit and make sure they're correct and do manual labels to get everything started? A lot of the time, what we recommend is start labeling now when things are received or things are produced. You'll go through a transition period where more and more and more things are labeled, meaning when they're doing their transactions, your employees are scanning rather than manual data entry. At some point, almost everything will be labeled except that junk in the corner, that slow moving product that you bought too much of 5 years ago. So during one of your cycle counts, one of your annual inventories, you'll probably go through and just start tagging boxes and at some point manually label them, right? But you don't feel like you need to invest all that time up front and get every box labeled. Common challenges and quick solutions, right? So scanning errors, it's real common that you made a mistake in one of your data sources and you forgot an asterisk at the beginning of a part number and it doesn't scan right. So that's going to be covered during your testing phase. You'll occasionally have some hardware issues that come up because each scanner can scan all sorts of different barcodes, but it has to be enabled, right? So you want your machine to know what kind of label it's looking for so it can validate. So there might be a little issue where a box got unchecked or checked during setup. Printer compatibility issues, brand new equipment, network printers. there's some complexity. It's an IT process, right? So all of that needs to get set up and identified. But again, I have seen issues with drivers where someone took an automatic Windows update that overrode the Seagull driver and it broke stuff. It's just something that your IT team needs to understand, or if you're working with us, maybe through our advanced services managed help desk services, we can help you with that. But at some point, you get them working, you document what the configurations are, and you leave them there until the machine dies, right? And that's what most people have done. Sometimes Epicor integration problems, and that's really just a matter of troubleshooting. So 99% of that would be caught, slide back during your testing for smooth adoption before user training. And then if something breaks a year later, 2 years, 3 years later, you can call us and we'll help you diagnose that.